The embattled Maryland State Superintendent of Schools, Mohammed Choudhury, will resign effective tomorrow.
As Chris Papps explains, his resignation follows a series of Project Baltimore investigations raising questions over transparency within the Maryland State Department of Education and potential violations of state law.
Mohammed Choudhury is stepping down after just 2 years as the Maryland State Superintendent of Schools, marking the end of a tumultuous term. In his final goodbye, he penned this op-ed in the Baltimore Sun, touting what he calls critical progress. But Project Baltimore took a closer look at his performance. The op-ed, published this week in the Baltimore Sun, reflects on Choudhury's 2+ years leading the State Department of Education and reads as a record of his accomplishments. Among them, Choudhury cites improvement on state test scores, saying literacy results are better than before the pandemic. And in math, students are showing signs of recovery from COVID learning loss. While literacy rates have improved across the state, lagging math scores continue to raise alarm. Project Baltimore analyzed the spring 2023 state test results and found at least 200 Maryland schools where 5% or fewer students tested proficient in math. We also found 13 Baltimore City high schools where 0 students among those tested scored proficient in math. The op-ed does not address math scores in Baltimore City, but Choudhury does say grant funding under his leadership helps city schools improve English test scores by 4.5 percentage points in grades 3 through 8. That is also true. But even with the improvement, only 25% of 3rd through 8th graders in Baltimore City schools are proficient in English. That's the lowest in the state by 5 full percentage points.
These schools are 5 minutes from this building.
In June, Choudhury acknowledged strained relations with lawmakers in Annapolis, even writing an apology letter for his missteps. But in this op-ed, he says he changed the way the Maryland State Department of Education functions, making it an effective operation. That is not what we heard from former employees like Robert Eccles, who testified before the state board, saying Choudhury's leadership created a toxic workplace culture.
Transformational leaders actually lead people and don't disparage them. They invite feedback and can take criticism without retaliation.
In this op-ed, Choudhury never says why he's leaving, but his resignation follows a series of Project Baltimore investigations that raise concerns about his leadership.
Mr. Superintendent, have you ever used the Signal application and commission of your job?
I have no comment.
Thank you much. Appreciate it.
For my job?
Well,
Project Baltimore first showed you that video last month, exposing how Choudhury used the encrypted messaging app Signal to conduct state business. We obtained screenshots, some of which appear to show Choudhury berating an employee, supporting allegations that the superintendent created a toxic workplace culture.
This I pondered for months, taking this stand.
Days after Fox 45 broke that story, 3 Republican lawmakers took a strong stance, calling on Choudhury to step down immediately.
And if you're not going to have the transparency, let somebody else do it.
At the same time, Governor Wes Moore, a Democrat, also came out strong when asked about Project Baltimore's reporting.
I want transparency, I want accountability, and I want a superintendent that believes in it and can deliver it.
Just 9 days after Project Baltimore exposed how Choudhury used that encrypted messaging app for work, he announced he would step down. But this was not the first time that he had come under fire. Project Baltimore, this past summer, also reported how Choudhury used a secondary email account to conduct state business, and that his state-issued cell phone was set to auto-delete text messages after 30 days. 12 of those messages were deleted after Fox 45 filed a public records request to obtain them, a potential violation of state law. Months before that, we exposed how MSDE, without telling the public, removed state test scores from its website, heavily redacted them, and then reposted them, a move that kept parents and taxpayers from seeing how poorly some schools are performing.
Mr. Choudhury.
That decision by MSDE sparked backlash. But when we tried to question Choudhury about it,
Test scores on the website.
he locked himself behind a door. In the wake of our findings, lawmakers and special interest groups have demanded answers, asking the Attorney General, State Prosecutor, and Inspector General for Education to investigate.
There cannot continue to be scandal after scandal after scandal.
These schools are not thriving.
All of this proved to be too much. Sources within the State Department of Education told us the school board's support for Choudhury deteriorated with each new Project Baltimore finding. The state superintendent agreed to resign and transition to a new role as senior advisor to the state school board. His $310,000 salary will stay the same until his contract expires in June 2024. Now, the state board will conduct a nationwide search for the next state superintendent of Maryland Public Schools. The state school board appointed Dr. Carrie Wright as the interim superintendent until a permanent replacement can be found. Dr. Wright served as the Mississippi state superintendent, where she's credited with improving literacy scores. Project Baltimore in the coming weeks will take a closer look at what Dr. Wright did to improve those reading scores in Mississippi, a state that had been struggling for decades. And could those strategies also work in Maryland? I'm Chris Pabst, and this is Project Baltimore. I'm Chris Pabst. Thanks for watching. Here's another story to watch. Also, if you have a story idea, please send us a message.